the quality of the welfare services, and everything else. So those essentially are the questions. As I said, we can talk about some of them today, but they're also on the website. But we're also here to address any concerns or questions that you have. So over to you, and thank you very much. Oh, it's very nice to get a clap. Thank you. Any questions or comments? I know there must be lots. Who's going to start? Yeah, please.
Okay, so you said that part of what you want to do is make sure the student experience at SOAS remains unique and remains kind of important. Whereas I feel, studying myself, and I expect many other people here in this room, the reason they came to SOAS over anywhere else was the regional specialisation in their degree. So how can you justify that the cuts and that are being implemented are supporting your aims of optimising student experience and keeping SOAS unique if you're looking to, act half the African department and a whole load of the languages, and of course it's like, that's completely contrary in my eyes to the moves that you set out to do. So I suppose I want to understand in further detail why you want to do this and how you feel that supports the statements you just made.
Well, we haven't opted to cut any departments or any languages. What we have done is said to all the departments that we have some savings targets that we have to meet. We also want to look at potential areas for growth and investment, and we want your ideas as departments, and this is a conversation that's been happening in every department, but also across every faculty, about how we can do this. And in the new year, all of those ideas will be put together, and out of that, we will develop the strategy going forward in terms of the financial sustainability element of this. But there is no plan at the moment to cut any courses or to cut any departments in the way that you describe.
But that wasn't, whatever the stance now is on the documents that were leaked within the year regarding course cut, lots of those on that document were kind of, from my perspective related to Africa, so there was the initial prior to kind of the uprising of the frustration and anger within the student body and intention to cut these, and ultimately if there are savings they are going to be cut. So how can you therefore justify making these cuts while keeping it a specialist institution that specialises in Middle East and Africa?
Well, first of all, there was no intention to make those cuts. There was a document which was put out, which went out in my name, which I had not seen and which I had not signed off. I sent a note out immediately to all staff and students saying that. It's created a huge amount of uncertainty and added to the mistrust that exists within the school. And I think that is a great pity, because what we have sought to do is to have as consultative a process as possible, as I said, within the departments and within the faculties. We have been completely transparent about the figures and why it is we have a shortfall, so that we can work together on ways of addressing it. And there are areas across the school, for example, of duplication, in some areas where we may be teaching 2 or 3 courses in different places, which essentially have the same kind of content. So departments are looking at this kind of thing. I don't know if any of the deans want to say anything about what they're doing in their faculty. Lutz. Languages and languages and cultures.
My history at SOAS is I'm half in English and half in the Africa department, so I care actually quite deeply about African languages. But one of the problems we have is that it's student numbers. So there is no wish at all from the department, from the faculty, or only from the school, to cut language courses. But we are in a situation that we're teaching 6 African languages: Swahili, Somali, Amharic, Zulu, Hausa, Yoruba. But except for Swahili, we don't really have a lot of students. So partly, I think, but sorry if I'm manipulated, But part of it, I think, so I was very happy by the big discussions we had across the school, across all faculties, from the student body, about the importance of languages. But in part, I think, for you guys as students, what would be useful is to see how you can actually do more language studies in your degrees. Because that would immediately change the situation. Because it's not a question of wanting to cut, but for Zulu, for example, if you have, I don't know, 10 students in the first year, 3 or 4 going to the second year, we're not going to run the third year for 1 student or only 0 students. So it's not that we say we want to cut Zulu, but at some stage, it's not nice for the teacher. It's not financially viable, of course, but that's almost like a secondary issue. But it's not fun either. So can I ask you, who is doing language of you? You guys are SOAS students. Yes, that's not bad. Who is doing an African language? Ah, very good. Swahili.
Amharic as well.
Ah, 2. Very good. So, you enjoyed yourself?
Yeah.
Very good.
Well, Amharic is the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
With no explanation.
I know, yeah.
Nice to receive.
But that sounds good to me. If you have a chat with your fellow students, explain to them how wonderful it is to learn these African languages. And, I'm passionate about it because I think it's really important for our educational mission. So, I'll shut up in a moment. But what I think is really important is that what we do at SOAS is we engage with Africa and Asia, regions beyond there, and we want to understand the societies, the histories, the people, the cultures. And the key argument SOAS is making is that in order to do that, you have to know the languages. You can go to Africa and only speak English and French, but you will end up talking to a very select group of people who have access to English and French, and you won't get really a good understanding of what's happening on the ground. So if you want to specialize in our areas, you have to do that through the languages. That's why we have them, that's why we teach them, but we have to rely on the students to actually wanting to do them and choose to do them. And then if there's problems with that, if it doesn't fit with your timetable, with the schedule, that's something we can do on the policy level. Yes?
Thank you, Liz. Thank you. I saw some other hands went up.
Why didn't you offer like a forum question and answer like this earlier when like the occupation was at its height, for example?
We had several discussions with the student union representatives and also with the Occupy SOAS representatives. I'd very happily have offered a forum like this if it had been asked for, but I take responsibility for that, and I'm very happy to do this on a regular basis.
We know that student stress levels have been continually increasing over the last few years. Do you think that it's acceptable for students to wait 4, 5 or 6 weeks for a counselling appointment? And if not, what do you propose we do about it?
No, I don't. And I mean, I went over to talk to the welfare team in Vernon Square, and they talked me through some of the concerns that they had. And I'm also very concerned that, in the way that higher education is generally in terms of fees and how students are feeling about performance and everything, are putting a greater stress. We know that this is an area that we have to pay more attention to. When Senate House North Block is opened next year, we will have an opportunity to have much more of a student hub. But we do have to do more on the welfare side, which I don't think is going to be easy. But Laura, our registrar, is here, who's responsible for all of those areas. Laura, do you want to say a bit more about what we're doing? I think you need to sort of stand up and sort of stand to the side so people can hear you.
One of the things that we've been doing is talking both to welfare and actually to the teaching and learning unit, because I think it's also about academic support, essay writing skills, etc., which are all about this, and also about the transition and welcome week and coming into university. Because I think one of the things that we all feel is that we need to be providing more support up front. Counselling should be the last thing you come to rather than the first thing. And there's a lot of plans in place, and we'll be discussing that with the other directors. And I've also been talking to some directors. You haven't actually asked for any more money this term, so I'm not quite sure what the situation is. I'm just about to email and hasn't escalated to me this term.
I saw someone with a hand here. Yeah.
Following on from that, what provision has been put in place for counselling services? It said I did hear a rumour that actually their size of room was going to get cut, which would mean that one person would have to work from home. And bearing in mind that obviously it's going to be closer to the student population, your footfall is going to increase. Would it not be more than likely that you would need to increase your counselling services rather than jiggle them into a smaller space? I don't know, I might be wrong, but that is the information I've been given.
Yes, I'll just come to the front so I can answer that. So what's going to happen is down in the lower ground floor in the hub underneath the atrium, there's going to be a series of services. Careers are going to be there, some of the welfare advice and wellbeing service and the registry services. And then they're also going to have a suite of rooms upstairs. So we've given them more spaces upstairs. And I believe Alison's happy with that. They're going to have a treatment room up there and some other things. So I think they've got enough space up there. It'll be really good that they're here at the heart of everything.
Talking about well-being and mental health, how do you think Prevent is going to impact on students? Because I myself just opened a website on the MENA region, and I know the first thing that I had to do was to go through everyone who's writing for the website, seeing how they feel about what's happening in the university and in the UK, see if they're okay with it, check with them about anonymous on the website. And I know that lots of people feel threatened. How does that fit into this new view of well-being and mental health if people cannot carry out their research or they're interested in university? I mean, I had to go up to a friend and actively tell him, look, you shouldn't probably talk about ISIS in this class because it might be very problematic for you. How does that fit into this well-being?
Well, I don't understand where this idea that you can't have those debates and conversations is coming from, because Prevent is not about not having those discussions. In fact, it's really important that we are having an open debate about everything that's going on in society. There's nothing in the Prevent guidance that says you can't have those discussions.
The point is that,
sorry, but there are things in the Prevent guidelines that say if students are voicing a desire for home belonging or
Sorry, what did you catch, Hannah?
say that there should be a referral. So like,
Hannah, sorry, I didn't catch what you
so
said. What you said.
you're right in saying that there's nothing that says that we shouldn't be having an open and frank discussion. However, the guidelines do suggest that if a student voices a desire for home and belonging or views the principle of the state, that could be that person could be likely or susceptible to extremism. So I think students are very, very, it's very fair that people would feel that if they are expressing views like this, or if they are saying things that are provocative or challenging or somehow not in line with like.
Well, we need to work as a community to stop that feeling, because it isn't my understanding of what I'm required to do. And Hannah, I have to challenge you again. It would be much better if students were engaging with me on this conversation, so that I could make sure anything that we do have to do doesn't make students feel uncomfortable or attacked or victimised in any way. It's really critical that we don't make students have to be able to be free to express their opinions and views on things. Yeah. In fact, we have to have a conversation about safe spaces for lots of people.
Totally. Can I take from that then that the school will take a public position against Prevent and lobby against Prevent in a public way?
The school has lobbied against Prevent. We have lobbied against Prevent through UUK and as SOAS. We have made it very clear to government about our concerns more generally with respect to the kind of mood, if you like, that's being created in the country. But on the specific Prevent duty, we have looked at this very, very carefully. And we think that we can continue to uphold the values that are important for us as SOAS, and which we have said publicly are important for us as SOAS, and meet the responsibilities under Prevent. I mean, Laura, do you want to just go through it? Because I think it is just important to go through it, what we have to do.
Okay, so what Prevent requires us to do is first of all do a risk register. So what would be the impact of somebody being radicalised on the campus? We then have to look at our policies. We have to look at our IT policy. So for example, we have to consider
consider whether we should have any kind of filters. We have already decided we will not have any sorts of filters on our internet. So we've met that requirement. We've looked at our policy and we've made a decision. We have to look at our policy around hosting events. We've looked at that and we're happy with the policy that we've got at the moment. And we also have to provide some training. Now this is probably the most problematic piece of this. But what I want to do, and it comes back to Tom's question about other issues around stress, is to do some very general training for staff who work with students to help them if they have a student who comes to them in distress for some reason, which might be to do with sexual violence, it might be to do with a mental health issue, it might be to do with something else. At the moment, I don't think our staff are very well supported in being able to help students who are in that situation. And those are really the key things that we have to do. It does talk about good pastoral care and chaplaincy, and I think one of the things I would like to do is be more engaged with the provision that there is around chaplaincy. But I think other than that, there's nothing else in there that we need to do. But some support from the Students' Union in developing that training would be really appreciated.
Could you repeat the first one, the risk assessment?
We have to do what's called a risk register. So we have to kind of have a look and think, what is the risk of our students of being radicalised? And actually, my view is that SOAS is at a very, very low risk. So that's all we have to do. We just have to make some sort of assessment of what our risk is and what would be the impact if a student was to be radicalised on campus. And the reality is some universities have had to deal with this. So that's all we have to do. And we decide any actions we need to take as a consequence of that. But this material is all it cannot be in the public domain. Sorry, there's somebody at the back here. Is this related?
Yeah, I mean, it's related. I have to say, I think there's a contradiction in what's being presented. I mean, I think it's fantastic that there was lobbying both with the government and in the UK. I think it would be a total mistake and an abandoning of our students to stop that work now. I mean, both the UCU and the NUS have taken a position in education to continue to reject prevent. And I think it's a very worrying sign to hear an approach to prevent that says, well, the risk of radicalization isn't that high. I think an institution like SOAS, which is extremely critical in its teaching, that brings a very critical approach to the world, shouldn't kind of take an approach to such an attack on civil liberty, which is being rejected by civil liberty groups, by trade unions, etc., across society, to saying, well, the risk of radicalization isn't that high. I think we should reject as an institution, not simply as a student union.
There's two things, aren't there?
The question of even the principle of asking our staff to keep tabs on students. I think that as an institution we should absolutely refuse to take part in that. And I think it'd be great if you would take a lead on that stuff, to say that we will protect our students, that we will never refer students from an education institution to the state. I think that would be a terrible abandoning of the basic principles of welfare in an institution. And I hope that, you know, if indeed there was an opposition, I think it'd be terrible if we dropped this opposition now that it's passed into law, instead of joining in this kind of broad coalition in British society that continues to oppose prevent, particularly in an institution like SOAS, in which, you know, I think it doesn't take a lot to imagine that it would be an institution that would be particularly targeted by these.
Can I just say, we are not asking our staff to report on our students. There's a fundamental misunderstanding here. We are not asking our staff to report on our students.
So the government, and so as an institution, it'd be very welcome, I think, that we would say that this is a huge attack on civil liberties
No.
by the government, to ask staff to report on students their desire for their growth and their desire for liberty.
I think there's a...
Sit down with the act that the government has been very involved in all sorts of national campaigns around it. The act is quite clear that by law, any worker in civil service has to fulfill these requirements. So if the institution isn't asking, I think that's fantastic. But I think the institution should go upwards as well and say, like, explain why we're not asking staff to do it, and say that this is a huge attack on the integrity of
can I just, because I really think that we have to sort this out. So there is a duty on organisations like ours to look at a number of things. Yes, to look at, is there a risk of radicalisation in your institution? We are saying no, because we are committed to freedom of expression, scholarly inquiry, and so on. There are a set of things that are very important for us as an institution, and we think that the fact that people are able to debate openly here is extremely important, and we keep repeating that. Then we also have to say, they want to know, do you have the policies in place in a number of things we need to report to the government that we are confident that we have the policies in place. So our feeling is that we do. We have a very clear policy on IT. We're not going to block off access to the internet. We already have good policies which are utilised by our student societies and others with respect to the people who come and speak, and we're going to stand behind those policies. We are not changing them. So I don't know where this leap into we will have to tell our staff to report on students comes from, because that is not our reading of what our requirements, the requirements are on us in terms of the duty. That is not our reading at all. Laura, have I got that wrong? No, I haven't got it wrong, I've got it right. Thank you. Sorry.
I just had a sort of a devil's advocate question for you, which is if there is such a thing as a risk register, which is that there is some form of assessment, I totally understand what you say in terms of civil liberties and feeling that they are being taken away. However, from another point of view, there is the protection that one would require as Brandon spoke about duty of care. So there's a duty of care to the students in this organisation, but we're all protected as well from somebody who may wish to carry out some form of attack on innocent civilians for whatever reason it may be. And whatever your political stance is, I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't think anyone should have their civil liberties removed from them. But I do feel that we should be able to come into school and feel safe in our environment without necessarily having a willing state. So there needs to be a balance, but I think that your argument isn't entirely valid in terms of what's going on right now in Britain and in the rest of the world. Sorry.
Thank you. Other comments?
To pick up on the idea of the already states, I did read Orwell and then I came to the UK, and it's incredible how he was very forward-looking as well, just as the SOAS strategy is. I think I got a leaflet from the Camden Safeguarding Children's Council where it clearly stated, like, if you identify that your child has disagreements with British foreign policy. I cried last week because of British foreign policy, and I don't agree with it. And prevent is a more welcome policy, and it's not limited to SOAS. Like, we do come from, I'm not only a SOAS student. I come to SOAS from somewhere else. My parents might be receiving these leaflets, and so if you are intent on having a somewhat holistic student welfare and actually caring about not only the students in your institution, but also the workers, and here I have to include the workers who aren't directly employed by SOAS as well, and who are often on more precarious contracts, and especially immigration statuses. Again, the civil liberties are not granted to everyone in this country on the same equal level. That is a myth, and I think prevent is a direct threat to this and how it's being implemented. And if you want to resist it, please, let's resist it, but let's resist it to the end. Let's not say, oh, we did some lobbying, it went into law, and then let's try and keep some of our policies in place whilst everyone, whilst people are being arrested, whilst people are being deported. It has to stop somewhere. If you want to resist, resist. If you don't want to resist, don't say you're resisting.
Well, I think there's a confusion here. I can completely understand why everyone feels so strongly about this. But SOAS it's an institution. It is an institution which has to function within a body of regulations. If we do not function within that body of regulations, then we cease to exist. So we have a choice, yes? As you say, we can, resist to the end, and our institution, which is unique and different, and actually which allows debate and openness around these issues, which enables all of you to go out and challenge and to take a different perspective, that can disappear. Or we can be very clear that there are campaigns which students will engage in, which staff will engage in. There are things that I will say from my experience about what concerns me, about what is happening in the United Kingdom, but I will say this not in a way that puts the university or the school at risk. I think we have to be able to distinguish between how we run SOAS that enables the freedoms that you want to see and the values that you want to see, and enables people to speak freely about these things without SOAS, the school, being, as it were, the campaigning edge of this. And I think that there is a confusion that happens here. We have to operate as a university within a legal and governance and regulatory framework. And if we do not, we will be closed down. I saw someone at the back.
Yeah, I mean, all this talk about radicalism, it makes me think, you guys, obviously the law is against radicalism. Me, I consider myself a radical. I embrace the term. So does that mean that I'm going to be, looked after? Yeah, that's my question. And I mean, the term itself is a problem, so why aren't we going against it? Maybe it's time that we actually take a stand and challenge them. Maybe it's worth challenging them on whether they will try to shut us down, because maybe that is something that's worth fighting for.
I think I've already addressed the point that you're making in my last answer.
Just to follow on from issues of prevent, so I lead up the society here at SOAS. A number of our members have been faced with credible threats of prevent by certain groups, whether in SOAS and outside. And the school has not made us feel particularly safe in that regard, particularly international students amongst us. That's the first point that I wanted to make, because this is an issue that is very important, because we cannot carry out our work as a society if constantly we are faced by the threat of prevent, which is something that we are faced by every single day. Secondly, the work that we do is something that last year a vast majority of the students who voted gave us the mandate to do. And the school should then support us in that regard by not only making sure that we feel safe as students, but also by enacting the motion that was requested of the school. I mean, I'm sure you've probably figured out which motion I'm talking about.
No,
it's
useful
the
if you...
BDS motion, which you have told us is nothing more than an opinion poll, which is a bit ridiculous considering that it follows the guidelines that are set out in our union constitution, which are agreed by the Board of Trustees and the school as a whole. I think it's very hypocritical that the school, that you are right now talking about protecting our right to civil liberties, our right to freedom of speech, when you work with institutions that academic freedom, freedom of speech, and civil liberties. So I mean, we could work on that, us as a society, and maybe the union and the management, but there's not a channel that's open for that. So we don't feel supported in both of those respects, and we are students of the school. We pay our fees here. We try to come here. We have to pay a good amount of money to get visas to be here in the first place. So I would appreciate maybe some comment comments on that and maybe a way that we can move forwards with this rather than just throwing it to the side, which you seem to have done.
Well, first of all, if you...
A number of our students have also received more credible threats than prevent, like being attacked, personally being attacked in terms of our own, identities as well online and things like that. These are more credible threats than prevent as well. So I think this school does not support us in this regard. And
my point was going to be, because I was not aware of this, so have these concerns been brought to the school and we've not dealt with them? Is that what you're saying to me? So where were those concerns? Where did the individuals go and say these things are happening to us on our campus and to enable us to deal with them? Because Laura, have you had? I've never heard these complaints. So where did you take them?
As advised directly to management.
Yeah, but who?
I don't know. We were given an email to send our complaints to, and we sent them.
Well, it would be really helpful if you could find out where it went and came back to us, because we are not aware of this.
What measures will the school take in that regard?
Well,
because now we don't have too much confidence.
Which I understand, but I need to know what threats our students have come under on campus and from where, so that we can know how to deal with them. And I can't answer your question sort of in isolation, because I don't know exactly what you're talking about. To come on to your second point, the key and important thing about this issue of freedom of expression and being able to communicate and debate and argue is that has to apply to everyone. And that's something that the school needs to stand by. So can I finish? I mean, I've just finished a series of meetings with some of you within your faculties. And a number of students have said to me, which really concerns me, that they no longer feel safe expressing opinions which go counter to the opinions of some of their other student colleagues, because they are then bullied and they are not allowed, they don't feel able to speak. Now, this is not what SOAS is about. SOAS should not be about closing down debate because somebody doesn't agree with you. I thought the whole point about being here and the whole point about being the kind of organisation where we pride ourselves on taking, as it were, alternative views and perspectives was precisely the opposite, which is that people felt able to come here and debate and discuss from different perspectives. And one of the reasons that we feel able to say to government that we think that the risk of, to go down a route of saying, no platform for this, no platform for that, let's stop this happening, is not something that I think that we should be doing as a school. There is a position which has been taken by the Student Union. That's fine. We respect that. It is not a school position. It is a student union position.
So I'm kind of eager to speak about the curriculum a bit. So obviously institutions are sort of constructed with different missions, so to speak, with different ideals, and there are obviously different sort of education practices and process variables, different dimensions of value from institution to institution, from department to department. And these operate on multiple levels, multiple dimensions, and they interact in really complex ways. And I guess my question is, how is the curriculum review going to account for the complexity of ways that things like measures of quality, educational and pedagogical practice, and like all these things interact? It seems
level and address some of the questions that you raised. But if you look at some of the principles that were agreed earlier on with respect to the basis on which to conduct a curriculum review, you will see that there are a whole set of principles which are all around the academic experience. Yeah. Laura, you've just had a discussion, I think, in the JNCC on this issue of compulsory redundancies. Do you want to report on that?
Yeah, so obviously the UCU wrote to us about whether we could make a guarantee of no compulsory redundancies as part of this first phase. And we've been very clear all the time that we're looking for ground-up proposals during this informal consultation period. Looks to Harpole and Matt have been leading discussions within their faculties and with their heads of departments. Because there was a chance of us being senior duties further down the line, whether there is some way we can give them some word and give them some reassurance, and I'm going to talk to them about that tomorrow.
Thank you. You had your hand up at the back. Are seeking to meet it. And, you know, for us, it's about how over time can we sustain an investment in the things around us that actually help to make the student and the staff experience better. On your point about research, a lot of work has been being done on this, and Richard is here, Richard Black. Do you want to pick up on the points about what you're trying to do around research excellence and staff getting more time for research and so on?
So yes, it is my responsibility to address research. I agree with you entirely that we should not be relying on a casualised workforce, and we have been taking some steps to try and make sure that a greater proportion of our teaching is delivered by established staff, and also to work with UCU to make sure that we are not employing people on a temporary basis where there is not a justification for having a temporary member of staff because the need is permanent. We do have some of our teaching that is delivered by what are called GTAs, and perhaps some of you are GTAs, but the purpose is slightly different. The purpose is to provide a teaching opportunity to PhD students as part of their career development, and that is by definition a temporary thing because it's orientated around the PhD students and providing them with an opportunity rather than necessarily the teaching need. And on time for research, one of the things that we've instituted in the last year is a new policy on research leave for all teaching and research staff in the school, so that we try to make time in the curriculum in order that there are better conditions for people to carry out the research that they need to do. Because I agree with you that universities in research terms, teaching terms as well in fact, are as good as the staff that we have. The staff are our most important resource, and it is really important that we invest in them. But I also agree with Valerie that we cannot ignore those other things. We cannot ignore the shocks that come our way. It would be foolish as an institution not to have an ability to withstand those. And part of the experience of the last few years is that we've been running so tight a margin on the budget that when we're faced with a loss of income, whether that's from REF or HIVE or an increase in staff salaries because of pensions or London waiting or whatever it is, we have no margin to deal with that. Just to pop another one in there, I hear from students, PhD students in particular, that they want us to have more bursaries. I've been actively looking for more bursaries. But one of the issues here is that most bodies, philanthropy or research councils, that provide money for bursaries, they expect universities to co-fund them. We have no margin at the moment to provide that funding. So that is why we need a 5% surplus on turnover, in order to make sure that we have the ability to invest in the future of the institution.
I apologise, we've run over time and there are lots of hands up, so I had promised you I'd bring you in. So, yeah, last quick question.
Oh, okay. Well, there was a bit of a question
We're definitely looking at areas for growth and investment, and looking at ways of, attracting more students, which links into some of the questions that I've been asking on the strategy questions. So I'd encourage all of you, please, to go to the website, send in your comments on the questions, add additional questions if you think that there are more questions that we should ask. We'll have another one of these fora next term, so please do come and join us then to continue the conversation. And we will keep communicating, and also I hope to see some of you again in the meetings with departmental and faculty representatives as well. If you have further questions for me, please do send them in and I'll try and answer them. Thank you all very much. Oh yes, and I'm doing SOAS Radio tomorrow, so if you've got further questions, please send them in. Is it Thursday? Okay, Thursday. Thank you. Thank you all very much.